February was such a great reading month for me. I'm so excited to share with you all the books I read. Before we get into all the books, I did want to also just kind of take account of my 3 monthly goals I have for my reading. Every month, I'm aiming to read 1 book, and I did accomplish that. I've read 6. Every month, I want to read 1 Kindle Unlimited book, and then I also want to read 1 book through Spotify, which is an audiobook, obviously. And I did meet those goals, feeling so proud of myself. I actually read 2 Kindle Unlimited books. I'm always the overachiever. I just need to justify spending money on these subscriptions, especially Kindle Unlimited, because I try to temper my spending on Amazon as much as possible, but I just want to support indie authors. So yeah, if there's several months where I'm not using Spotify for audiobooks and I'm not using KU, it's time to let go of these subscriptions. But for now, I'm keeping them. Since February is kind of like the month of love because of Valentine's Day, which I really love to lean into since I really love romance, especially of the more paranormal monster variety, I found a really fun way to decide which books I'm going to be reading because there's just tons. My TBR is just overflowing with horror romance, spooky romance that I didn't know where to start. And what does any chronically online reader do? We obviously come up with a TBR game to help us decide. So that's exactly what I did. I used candy hearts to help pick out which books I'm going to be reading. And it was so fun. I didn't realize how fun it was going to be to figure out what kind of interpretation I wanted to use for the little candy hearts. They're so random and so weird sometimes, especially it just depends on what brand you get. So let's start from the beginning and I'll take you chronologically. The first one I pulled said Sugar Pie, which for me, I interpreted this as any kind of book that either the title or any kind of element of the story related to something that has to do with food. I wanted to read Virgin Night by Christopher Robertson for several years because I just really love his books. Cotton Candy Massacre is just one of my favorite series of all time. And I'm also obsessed with his book called My Zombie Sweetheart. I really love the premise of this one where you have kind of a Valentine's Day slasher. Unfortunately, I DNF'd this book. I really tried, for a full week. I was trying to give it a shot, but I just felt like the setup was so slow. It took me really long to get to even meeting the whole cast of characters that were mentioned in the synopsis. And I don't know, I just don't have patience when I know there are other books that are just calling my name right now. Although I was quite devastated that this book did not work out for me, I moved on. I picked a different candy to use as my inspiration because there wasn't anything on my TBR that was food or candy related. So I didn't want to pick something up just for it to be another dud. I needed a win early on in the month to feel kind of energized. The Candy Oracle had spoken and I picked up Love Bug, which I interpreted as somebody bugging you, a romance that was annoying, unwanted love, basically. I had the perfect book on my TBR for this one. It's a new release, How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. This one's perfect because you have a woman who's on this speed dating event thing, and there is somebody who's at the event that has her in his sights. So he's also a serial killer. Should have mentioned that. So yeah, it's definitely an unwanted love. I listened to the audiobook for this one. It is so fantastic. You could hear the little slashing sounds, blood spatter. You also have the main narrator is a woman, but then you have men who are speaking. So you kind of get dual without having dual perspectives, but you hear dual voices. Really well produced. And if you're somebody who enjoyed the movie Heart Eyes, then this one would be perfect for you. I can't imagine the author not taking inspiration from that movie since the killer in the book is called Heart Eyes and has a very similar mask. It has to be. And sadly, I think I kind of preferred the movie Heart Eyes over this book. I loved the first half of the book. I really feel it was super strong. The pacing was great. The characters were interesting. I loved all the commentary on horror movies and the genre and how to survive one. And the characters were just interesting in general. But I felt the second half flopped for me because I was so concerned with who was messing with our main character. Who do we trust? That I couldn't get myself invested in the romance. And on top of that, the reveal wasn't gratifying enough for me, or at least it wasn't super creative, or maybe at that point I was just done. I gave it 3.5 stars. So I wouldn't say it's a favorite. I didn't waste my time, but I definitely didn't feel like it gave me what I was hoping this horror romance would be. I dipped back into my candy bowl and I pulled out Plus One, which is the perfect, seriously, such a fun prompt because the way I interpreted Plus One is it's an addition that you don't want, like an unwanted guest, a third party in your relationship. And I had the perfect book on my TBR for this. I am so absolutely fully obsessed with the Dravenhurst Brides. 5 stars. I mean, we started off with this gorgeous, beautiful vintage cover, and then it's a Rebecca retelling, but like keep all the best parts of the book and let go of all the other things that I didn't find the most enjoyable. The Dravenhurst Brides follows a young woman who kind of makes like a very quick decision to get married to this gentleman who has his own distillery for bourbon, and this is like a really atmospheric Gothic inspired story where it's kind of like a haunting of the women who've lived there, whether it was the mother of her new husband or his grandmother. She's basically haunted by the past Dravenhurst women, and she has to kind of come to terms with that legacy and that history, as well as her own past trauma. I think it's just beautifully well done because also the setting, it was very clear we were like in the 1920s. In addition to being beautiful, it's so empowering. I love the commentary and the development of the main character. So good. And then with this next prompt, things got a little tricky for me here, a little challenging. So I pulled out a little candy that said wink, wink, and I interpreted this to kind of be a book that has a sense of humor, like things are flirty, silly, the tone is playful, and maybe a bit humorous. I first tried the Dead Poets Sorority, which is a new release that I was excited to try, and yeah, it didn't work for me. I don't think I was in like a YA mood. I'm pretty sure it was young adult. If not, it kind of read like it. So that was a no to me. I didn't really like the writing. The first chapter, I wasn't invested, so I moved on. After that DNF, I tried My Big Fat Vampire Wedding, and I DNF'd that one too for a similar reason. I just felt like the writing style it felt, I don't know, is the word elementary? Like it didn't feel sophisticated. It didn't feel smooth. It's so hard to describe, but maybe like cold, procedural. It didn't have any kind of camp or cute, spooky atmosphere I would expect from a book that has this kind of cover. But I had more success with An Enchanting Case of Spirits, which I gave 4 stars. This book is so sweet. It follows a older woman who's, I think she's like celebrating her 40th birthday at the start of this book. I was like, the 40th? I'm pretty sure it's the 40th. And she has been grieving the loss of her husband in a really fatal accident, like it was really violent. It was horrible. It was a car accident. And she was in there, so she has a lot of grief. But it's been about 2 years after that. And she goes to a tarot card reading where it kind of unlocks a bit of like psychic abilities for her. So she's a medium, and then she gets kind of swept up in a murder mystery that her and her group of friends, who are really fun and eclectic, all try to solve because she's kind of stuck. Like whatever the outcome is, like she needs to figure it out so her life can get better. I really appreciated its sense of humor because there are dark aspects to this book. It is a rom-com mystery, but I think that it gets deep, it gets real because I mean, for one, we're talking about grief and murder, but I thought the tone was very appropriate and it really cut the tension and added a bit of lightness. And I really love the world building of this one, of how you have ghosts in the afterlife, like that kind of lore was fascinating. There is a sequel, and I'm happy that there is a second book, because I don't feel like the resolution for the romance was satisfying enough for me, as well as the mystery. The second Spotify updates my listening hours, I'm getting to the sequel. I pulled a very iconic Candy Conversation Heart prompt, and that is True Love. You would think this prompt would be pretty easy to find a book, but again, I was struggling quite a bit. I interpreted this one to be, true love, like falling in love with yourself. I was really wanting a book where the main character is feeling very empowered and they, just evolve in a way that makes them feel like they are the main character, the biggest love of their lives. I read a few pages of I Think I'm in Love with an Alien, and that writing immediately was like, nope, that like turned me off completely. I didn't feel like it was, God, I don't want to say like good writing because that's just so subjective, but I just felt like it was a lot of like telling and rather than showing. And a lot of people on Goodreads also agreed with me on that. So I didn't want to continue and waste my time. So back to the library, that one went. And then I tried In the Dark, a haunted house romance. And I wanted to love this one so much. Like, what isn't there to be excited about when you have a girl who goes through a haunted house and there's like a serial killer in there who's also like working there as one of the haunt actors, and they fall in love and it's spicy. I wanted to love it. But again, the writing felt bad. Like, I don't want to say that. If I'm cringing while I'm reading dialogue and feeling like It's not realistic. The dynamics between any of the characters in this book is just a sign the writing isn't for me. But it's fine because this winding road led me to one of my favorite books of the month, Bedrock Baby by Wendy Dalrymple. Obviously, I gave this book 5 stars. I really appreciated the voice of our main character. Bedrock Baby follows a young woman who's really struggling in all ways, basically, economically, spiritually, emotionally, professionally. And the sad thing is like she has a lot going for her. It just takes her some time to see it. And I just really love the interactions between a lot of the female characters in this book. I love that we see the flaws of this main character and they work through them in ways that, I mean, even by the end of the story, like there's an unsettling ending here. And this book is exactly what I love to see in horror books, where you have a larger metaphor taking place in the story. So what's happening as an internal, invisible development for the main character is being externalized using the horror elements we know and love. And in this book, there is a lot of body horror to illustrate this metaphor. You could feel that it's set in the early 2000s. You know this main character is super flawed, and yet I found it so easy to empathize with her anyways and to like root for her. I didn't know what was gonna happen next, and I think that's probably one of the best places to be in as a reader. I used My Hero to find a book that had a very brave main character. The first thing that caught my eye with underneath is obviously the fantastic cover of this one, and the fact that once I read the synopsis of it, it immediately reminded me of both The Thing as well as Dredge, which is one of my favorite video games. There's a team of workers and scientists drilling into places that they have no business doing so in incredibly cold environments. You have hallucinations that people are seeing and a scientist that is definitely descending into psychosis. I gave this book 3.5 stars because the first half of it was incredible. I found myself having such a blast, and there's just a lot of anticipation when we hadn't figured out like what was underneath the ice, and once we kind of have that part figured out and told to us, it felt a bit anticlimactic, as well as like the pacing really picked up. It just felt like we were trying to get to the end of the story at lightning speed with a little bit less finesse and care. But ultimately, I feel like this book, although fun, I don't regret my time. In the long run, I feel like it's gonna be a bit forgettable. But not to worry, I ended February on a banger. The Candy Conversation Oracle spoke for the last time and gave me You're Cute. I was feeling a bit sassy, so I interpreted this candy as like, you know, female rage, like an unhinged woman doing cute things. My audiobook for Tradwife came in and I was like, oh, perfect timing. This is exactly what I want to read right now. And I gobbled it up in one day. Even though this book is a 2026 release, I wasn't anticipating this one. I knew it existed, but it wasn't on my radar. And I love when I can surprise myself because I gave this one 5 stars, read it in one sitting via audiobook, and I'm fully obsessed with it. Probably gonna get a physical copy of it. Me and this main character couldn't be any more different, and yet I was so fascinated by her. And I mean, in general, I think the trad wife life is so like opposite of like my worldview, and yet I can't look away. It was super smart that the author kind of made our main character of 2 minds, where she's kind of going back and forth between the different parts of her that very much like want to be this like perfect image of what it means to be a woman, but then also at the same time there's like other parts of her that just know deep down that that is not fair and that is not right. I don't know how the author did it, but she captured so well the human complexity of like knowing something is wrong for you, like trying to attain this impossible vision of what it means to be like a perfect woman, and yet still trying to do it anyway. But really it was the ending that like solidified this book as like a 5 star. I was waiting for it. I don't care what the Goodreads reviews say about it being super predictable. I needed it. I wanted it. I was rooting for it. And probably, yeah, one of the best book endings I've read in a long time. If you're somebody like me who really kind of steer clear of any book that has to do with like pregnancy and babies, like motherhood, that kind of thing, I would invite you to give this book a shot, because I think that the central focus point of the story is more on the mother, and motherhood and a baby is kind of the path to a better understanding of themselves. So I found it just so beautiful. The message, the commentary. It's funny saying that it's beautiful when like it's a very gross, gory book at points. But I mean, I stand by my opinion. There is beauty in the darkness, and it is definitely good for her. women's rights and wrongs, but it felt so, so right. 5 stars. I think I had like what, 3 5-star books, a 4-star book, nothing below a 2, because at this point in my reading journey, I know that if like a book is going to be 1 star or 2 stars, I'm not going to finish it. Life's too short. So I'd love to know, what is a book you've DNF'd recently or book you've given 5 stars? Let me know down below in the comments, and I will see you on my next video. Bye.